It's me. I'm currently streaming live on Twitch whilst we
It's your
complete
boy.
this. So it's going to be a little bit of a different format. You'll see me responding probably in the chat a little bit, and we'll be going kind of from there. And hopefully, some people will come in and start interacting and all that good stuff. I'm joined again by Rooster and by Leechy. Say hello, guys.
Hey,
What's
what's up, dude?
That's the first time you've not said hello, guys, Leechy. Yes. Well then, let's get straight into this. So I really wanted to start by talking just about a couple of things that have been going on in the gaming community, and especially games that we kind of all play together. The first one being Escape from Tarkov. So I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday, the devs of like Battlestate Games, and they announced that 12.7 patch notes were going to be released this week, in which they were. I've just recently, literally 2-3 minutes ago, posted a video on 12.7 itself and kind of what it brings. And I mean, Leechy, you sent me the patch notes. That's how I managed to find them. They were huge. The patch notes were massive.
Yeah,
They were. I'm pretty sure I opened it, scrolled down, was like, "What the fuck is this bitch sending me?" I can't remember what I was doing at the time, but I just looked at it. I was like, "I ain't reading this now." I just put my phone back down and was like, "I'll come back to that later. That's too long."
Yeah, it is long. Like the patch notes are huge, but you know what? They're bringing so much great content into the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. Like, I looked at it and was all like, yeah, I'm not reading this now, but long patch notes usually a good thing.
Yeah.
It's good to know that there's a lot being done to a game, and it's not just say like, oh yeah, by the way, we fixed that one bug where this one thing happened.
Yeah. No, yeah, I completely I kind of agree with you on all of those fronts. And you know, a lot of it is, yeah, they've got all that new content coming through, but as I was scrolling further and further down the kind of the post itself, I got to the fixed section and I must have been scrolling for ages. Like
Yeah.
they look like they fixed a lot of bugs, which is fantastic. And I'm hoping that, you know, with that, it should smooth out the game slightly. It probably won't, because let's face it, they're bringing in a new map, they're bringing in a new scav boss on Shoreline, so it's gonna, you know, there's gonna be a lot of issues. And once it drops, everyone's gonna want to play it. Everybody wants to see what customs looks like. I can guarantee to you now, you're gonna be waiting probably around about 25 to 30 minutes just to get on a customs game for the first few days, because everybody is probably gonna try and get into customs, and if not, everybody's going to be at the pier at Shoreline. So if you're planning to go to either of them right now, you're going to have a bad time. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah. If you're planning, don't.
Yeah. And there's been some other interesting pieces that they've kind of released. So they've released a lot of new ammo. A lot of the ammo, it's suggesting that it could be very kind of meta changing, in terms of there's going to be a bullet for the Vector that's due to come out probably in the next patch, which has an 80 plus damage and a really high penetration rate as well, meaning that, you know, it's on par with like a Mosin round, for example. You put those bullets into a Vector, which Vector historically is known to be quite a, you know, a fast shooting weapon, you're going to shred people. The AS-Val is kind of the meta at the moment still, because it's of its fast fire rate and its high penetration and high bullet damage. The Vector's going to wipe the floor with the Val.
I do love a good Vector. I do love a good Vector. I am a big Vector fan on most games.
And it does look beautiful as well.
Oh, it's a beautiful gun. Like I only recently realized, and this was just something that I never even noticed. It must have been something subconscious. But me and Leechy were actually looking at our siege stats recently, and looking at our top played operators and stuff like that. And it was only then did I realize, damn, like two of my like a couple of my most favorite operators are the ones who use the Vectors. And also, when I was looking at my guns and my stats with the guns, I play notably better with those operators and with those guns. And I was just like, I think I like the Vector. I think I have a thing for it, because you looked at the stats and it was just like how much time I use the Vector and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I like the Vector apparently.
So you're going straight in, new meta, that's it. We know that Roost is going
Vector.
to be straight on the Vector.
When we're going into like 3-4 man raids, you better believe I'm the guy rolling the Vector. They're like, don't worry guys, if we get up nice and close, I'm gonna fuck shit up.
I'm just looking around like, right, who is everyone? I know that's Roost. He's got a Vector
Yeah.
in hand.
People are going to be in gunfights. No one's going to really be able to hear all the communications. There's going to be confusion. You're going to hear a couple of shots here. There might be some AK shots, and then you're just going to hear, oh, that's where Rooster is.
So yeah, I'm excited to see these new changes. The kind of new meta won't really hit until the Vector's here, but they've also something that I really didn't actually focus on the video that I just released was the fact that the grenade launcher is also coming out in this patch.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
oh dear.
Yeah. I've seen it in action. There's actually a trailer out. I'll post that trailer down in the description below for anybody who's watching this on YouTube. But yeah, the entire trailer kind of goes through the customs expansion. It goes through the kind of new ammo sets, I think, briefly. But it also shows off the new grenade launcher. And it's an under-barrel grenade launcher, so it's a noob tube.
Oh no!
Nice.
And yeah, it is... Yeah.
It's gonna be absolutely glorious and yet terrible.
It's going to be the worst. I think the good thing about it is it's got a low blast radius, which is great. And I think the shrapnel... It's not got like a high shrapnel chance, or the shrapnel itself is like low yield or something like that. But that doesn't matter because the fuse time is less than a second. You pump it, you fire it, people die.
Pretty much.
And that's terrifying. That is
can
absolutely terrifying.
Can you imagine catching like a group of raiders together and just landing one of those in the middle of them? Oh, it's going to be glorious. Can you imagine being on
Rooster, it won't be glorious because we're going to be that team that gets absolutely wrecked by a 40mm
100%
grenade launcher.
We all know I'm going to be the fucker who takes it to the feet. Some of you guys might barely survive it or something, but I'm going to be the guy that's just wandering around going, I think I heard something over, boom, I'm dead, guys.
Either that's going to happen or you're going to be the only bastard to survive that encounter. There's no in between. It's either you're the first dead or you're the last alive.
Yeah, it's very rare that I die in the middle of stuff. I either get one tapped before anyone's even I'm the guy who will get sniped.
Yes.
I'll be stood in the middle of the lot of you, and I'll just crumple to the floor, and the rest of you will just scatter. Like, Rooster's dead. There must be a
gazelles.
sniper.
Woo! Run away!
I'm pretty sure on numerous occasions, me and Lychee have been literally feet away from each other, and it's always me, without fail, who will take the sniper round. Now, if we're in a gunfight, Lychee will die. If we're not in a fight and there's a sniper watching us, it's always me. And that's just how it
might
goes.
be something to look into for your positioning. Who knows?
I'm too generous. It's almost always people are fucking like trying to loot, and I'm like, don't worry, guys, I'll cover you. But apparently, my covering is so fucking good, I draw all the attention to me and save you fuckers.
I just want to make sure that we're aware. If anybody has been, harmed by situations like this before, it's probably Rooster's fault. So blame him.
More than likely, always.
Always. No, that's happened a fair few times when we've played together. And it's been great fun. Kind of just, don't worry, guys, I'll cover. I'm dead.
Yep. I covered you, but I'm not covering anymore.
I'm dead. They're over there. We end up killing like the squad that's just murdered you. Like, look at all this loot.
There'll be the two of you, and you'll take on a 5-man squad, win the fight and everything. Like, go on, take on multiple squads, escape from the raid, and I'm just sat there like, I didn't even fire my weapon. I never even fired my weapon.
Waiting for somebody. Go on, Leech.
So it's always the way, man.
It's always the way. Sat there twiddling your thumbs.
For it.
Oh, Shoreline is the worst.
I get sniped on shorelines without fail. I can be the guy who's hiding in a bush while fucking Lychee is looting a body in the middle of an open field, but they snipe me. Every time.
I think you just need to get good, mate.
I obviously do.
That's
I
100%
am
what it
most
is.
definitely the epitome of the phrase "mad 'cause bad."
I love it. It's just the fact that I can picture you twiddling your thumbs in Discord, waiting for one of us to hide in a bush so we can start streaming, so you can see what's
Yeah,
going
because
on.
I
'Cause
usually
you're
like to
dead.
stay around. I don't just jump into a
Yeah.
like an all new raid. I wait for one of you to chuck a stream on Discord, and I'll sit there and watch and like see how the raid plays out. It's like I spend more time watching you fuckers play Tarkov than playing it myself.
Oh god. Right, I'm gonna quickly move on from Tarkov
Yeah.
really quickly because it's not the only game at the moment that's got a major patch kind of coming up, and that for anybody who has watched these episodes before, you'll know that every single episode, or near enough every single episode, I've got to talk about Star Citizen because I love that game so much. That is also getting a major patch, and yeah, I am a Star Citizen. Well, we'll just get that out there just straight away. Yeah, there's a new patch that's finally come to Wave 1 of the PTU after it's been in its Eva Carti, which is like a closed testing ground for... Oh, it's been in there for weeks. But it's bringing some really awesome features into the game. So it's completely changing the kind of ship UI across all of the ships, so it should be a little bit more forgiving for like fixed weapon placements, and it's a nicer kind of UI for ships as well. And I think the update itself is going to give it a fresh kind of look, because I think they've had that kind of combat UI and that ship UI for quite a long time now. So I'm really interested to see how it is. I've seen it in play. There's YouTubers such as Board Gamer who covers Star Citizen like all year round pretty much, and he's releasing a lot of videos kind of around that, and the UI itself looks really, really nice, and I'm looking forward to trying that out myself. Other than that, they've changed the turret gameplay as well, so I think that's kind of in line with the ship UI. So the turret gameplay is a little bit different, which, you know, it's giving something more to those people that want to jump in a ship together and play together. Not only that, on the flip side of that, the Star Citizen trading app is finally here. You can finally properly pay people for something. So there's no like workaround that you have to do anymore or anything like that. And it's currently still being tested. But if we're all in a ship and I say to you guys, right, let's go and do some trading, do some mining, something like that, whatever profit I make off of that, I can then give you and actually trade you a sum of money for that. Like, here you go, here's 20,000 AUEC.
Kind of thing, yeah. That's
And
great.
It's seamless, it's nice and easy, and you don't have to be in the same server. You can be on separate servers. You don't even have to be online.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good, that is. That's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that massively promotes the kind of multiplayer aspect that the game's going for, because the game is going for an MMO FPS, more or less.
Yeah, because the key thing is like sort of, or at least my favorite way to play it is, you know, when we all play it as a group. You know, those times where me, you, Lychee, and Luke were, you know, in your massive ship and just playing
From
around
a whale.
as a crew. Yeah, we're playing as a crew rather than just solo players. For me, that's where the enjoyment in Star Citizen is. So to encourage that play style more is definitely beneficial to the whole ecosystem of the game, really.
Absolutely. It's only like a couple of these testing focuses that they're bringing in and these new features are only improving that, and that's you know, that's giving more consensus for people to come back and play with their friends, and with it, I'm hoping that you guys come back and, you know, we can get my character or something and just go and do.
Yeah, I have every intention to. Like, I'm happy that I upgraded my ship, because, you know, if I do need to fly it, it's a nicer ship and stuff like that, and I could do more. But I definitely think the majority of my playtime on the game will probably be as more of a crew member on your ship. I'll probably spend more time in your ship than I would on my own, just because, I don't know, it's where the enjoyment for the game is for me, is to have a group of us, and, you know, while you're flying to the destination, because it is your ship, I could be getting things set up, getting ready, and then when we're there, we all, you know, disembark and do our task, whether it be mining or doing some kind of bounty mission or anything like that, and then all get back on board and fly off. Like I enjoy the group play style, so I am very excited to start playing that more.
It's interesting that you say about bounty hunting and stuff like that and collecting bounties, because while that actual gameplay mechanic has kind of dropped down the roadmap, they've put in a weapon called an Electron FPS weapon, and it fires out electron damage, and that's basically like stunning somebody. So it will fire a bolt of electricity at people, which can stun more than one person as well, depending on the vicinity of the person that you hit. So if we're standing like 2 meters away, we could potentially both be stunned by this, and that's going to really help with that kind of bounty hunting gameplay. Instead of trying to like kill a bounty, maybe
capturing a
get
bounty
it, you
is
capture the bounty.
a lot more doable and not reliant on role play. You can actually capture someone, which is good.
Yes, exactly.
That would be
And
fucking sick.
that,
Like tie people up and be like, you're going to jail.
The ability to non-lethal take down people is definitely important for the style of gameplay that Star Citizen is going for, where they want it to be almost like a living world with no restrictions, essentially. Now, at the moment, I think the community is very good at sort of still managing this through roleplay aspects. A lot of people in the Star Citizen community are happy to go along with roleplay, but that's other players willingly cooperating with something that they could easily just be like, no, and shoot you.
yeah.
But having the ability to actually non-lethally take someone down against their will, tie them up, and then take them away if there's a bounty on them, that's great. Obviously, they're going to have to be careful with it, because I know they've said in the past that with things like this, they've got to take into consideration griefing.
Yeah, and they've already talked about this a lot. So the devs have said that, let's say you have a bounty on your head, bounty hunter comes to claim the bounty, takes you aboard the ship. You, as the player, have the option to go to sleep, and what will happen is you will actually then wake up at prison, but your kind of character body that was on the ship will technically still be there, so that player can hand that in. What that does is
they'll have a fake clone of you, basically.
It keeps the kind of realism as far as it can do within that world, and it doesn't hinder the other player's experience.
Yeah, it means that they can't just indefinitely keep you on their ship and just be like, I'm not going to turn you in. You're stuck now.
Can you imagine?
Which is something they turned around and said they knew for a fact, like, it would happen.
Oh, we all know something like that would happen, for sure.
Oh, yeah. And so, I think the key thing is some of the progress on the game is slow going, but that's because they're being smart about the development, and they're working on these sort of workarounds and keeping the game flow correct and keeping griefing out before they finish and release a feature, whereas many games in modern times will release a feature without really thinking about the repercussions of it, and then a week later we'll be like, oh, everyone's complaining, we're working on something, and then like 2 months later they fixed it. But that's like 2 months of just unbearable gameplay, because every time you try and do something, you're getting grief. People are capturing you and just leaving you there, and that kind of frustration can kill a player base of a game. So I do like the fact that they're taking longer to release features, because they're making sure they've thought of and fixed these problems before they ever arise.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to see companies do that, because you pretty much just said it right there. A lot of features like that, they don't get fixed until 2,000 people have complained on the subreddit for it, and then it eventually gets fixed. They're taking so much into consideration, and they're really focusing on building that player base that's going to stay. It's a long-term investment for Star Citizen players and for the devs, for sure. And it's great to know that they're thinking about these things quite early on. Before we move on, though, I wanted to just touch on a couple of the other important features that are coming in that are going to make the game just a lot better. So I've already touched on the player trading app, which is going to be huge. Body dragging is going to be a thing now. So we're going squad level.
Going to aid the whole stun people and that. Well,
yeah. Oh, body dragging is something I love in all games. The ability to drag a body is amazing.
We've also got thruster efficiency curves, jerk, and aerodynamics. So that's very much going to be atmospheric flight is going to have a significant impact now, depending on the ship that you are flying. So, for example, let's say you're flying an Arrow, but your left wing has been taken off. It's going to be significantly harder in atmosphere to fly that ship, because the ship itself is going to want to try and turn, like, because it doesn't have a wing, it can't compensate. Henceforth, you as the pilot have to compensate for it. So, it's going into a really, really awesome and in-depth kind of focus on realism there in terms of atmospheric flight. And that if a ship shouldn't have, I can't even think now, if the ship itself is not very aerodynamic, it's going to be a lot harder to kind of fly on a planet and in an atmosphere than what it would be out in space. So it's really interesting to see that come in, and I'm looking forward to that. And they also focus on high speed combat as well. So ships, this is kind of the note that they've written in these patch notes. Ship systems will now suffer the consequences of traveling at high speed, restricting some of the options that players will have at maximum velocity. That will push players into engagement at lower speeds when flying above SCM speeds. So the SCM speed is when you hit that red marker. As soon as you hit that red marker, your weapon accuracy is off, your gimbal assist speed is completely destroyed, your missile lock speed will be negatively affected. There's all of these that are going to be impacting you, which is forcing a slower speed dogfight, which I think is only going to be a benefit to the entire kind of combat system, the spaceflight combat system, which I can't wait for. That's going to be so much fun.
Instead of it literally just being do a 180, fly in a straight line at someone at max speed, do a 180, fly in a straight line.
And that's what they're stopping. That's essentially that. You're just like
jousting. The Elite Dangerous meta was like that at one point.
Yeah,
it was for a while.
Of course, there are a lot of known issues still, as there are with Star Citizen. So I'm not going to go into any of them. If you guys want to see it, I can post these patch notes down below. And thanks to Star Citizen Leaks Discord for actually providing the information as it's kind of going through. So much appreciated there, guys. But we're going to get to kind of the main event for the Discord. For the Discord? That's not English. We're going to get to the main event for the podcast, which is the Ubisoft showcase that happened last week. I think it was last week, where they showed off a range of games. And I think, and I don't know if I'm in the minority here, I think that was the best showcase that we have seen from Summer Games Fest so far.
I have to agree.
It wasn't bad,
I have to agree. It was up there. It was pretty damn good. It was clean. It showed what people wanted. It showed enough gameplay mixed with trailers and things like that and little talks. It focused on all the right things while having a bit of a variety, and showed what Ubisoft has been working on, with Ubisoft being so vast and all the different sort of genres and areas that they cover. They really did a good job of showcasing that and showing that, look, we're not just a one-trick pony. Some of their games can be a bit, rinse and repeat and very simplistic, but they also do have all of these different franchises that are all very popular. So it was definitely good to see such a good range of things coming out of Ubisoft.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was having a drink.
That's all right.
No, I completely agree. I think there were so many. I think the problem that a lot of the other games fests had were a lot of featured games were kind of smaller developer games and not these huge IPs. I mean, there are a couple like Ratchet and Clank, for example, at the PlayStation 4 reveal. And PlayStation 5 reveal and all of that good stuff. But I mean, this had a lot of sustenance to it, the Ubisoft kind of showcase. So
it did.
You have a look at the likes of Watch Dogs Legion. Now, for me, Watch Dogs Legion is interesting. It's a really interesting concept, but I feel like as a gamer, I'm being disconnected from that franchise a lot more, purely because I feel like it's going down the same route that Saints Row went down.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. It's definitely taking a different route from its initial sort of design philosophy, but at the same time, equally with Saints Row, I kind of get why, because they kind of very quickly realized that the exact market that they were currently targeting and trying to be a part of, it just it wasn't going to work. It was too already sort of taken up by the major one, GTA. And I feel like they very quickly realized that although their game was, had its differences to GTA, it wasn't just some GTA clone or rip-off. They realized that the fan base were pretty much the same and they weren't going to win. It was just if people were either looking at Watch Dogs or GTA, it'd always be GTA that wins. So the same thing with Saints Row. That's what Saints Row realized after Saints Row 2 when they turned around and said, okay, so we're a bit like GTA, but focused more on gangs. There's a lot of people who like that, but anytime that people are either going Saints Row or GTA, GTA will win every time. It'll always have the numbers game. So just like with Saints Row, Watch Dogs have now turned around and said, okay, we need to switch things up. We need
Yeah.
to change our identity. Keep the core gameplay that people obviously enjoyed from Watch Dogs 1 because it was a popular game. But they just needed to really set themselves apart from GTA a little bit more than they were. It just kind of so happens that the both of them did it in the method of let's go a little bit more crazy
Yeah.
than grounded. Let's go a bit more colourful, a bit and like
and
this
by
has gone a bit more neon. But I don't know. I'm liking the direction. But I can appreciate that it has slowly moved away from what some of the more initial fans would have liked.
yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here and marking that down. And like I say, yeah, it's the same reason that I didn't really enjoy Saints Row, but that's my genuine opinion. And actually, Saints
Yeah.
Row 3 was the most successful Saints Row out of all of them for
Oh,
good
it was
reason.
massive.
It was a very good game, and I feel like Watch Dogs 2 righted a lot of the wrongs that Watch Dogs 1 kind of left sour tastes in a lot of people's mouth, in terms of just a terrible main character. And Watch
Yeah.
Dogs 2 really kind of set that and just threw that out the window. And it is a really interesting world and a really interesting concept. And now now Legion is kind of looking at it from a case of you can choose whoever you want to
Yeah,
be your character.
I kind of get the feeling with Legion that they basically went, what's that? GTA 5 has these three main like characters that you can play as throughout the story.
Hold
That's
my
pretty
beer.
cool. Oh yeah, exactly. They've
Is
just
one
gone,
of them an
oh,
old
three
lady?
characters. That's cool. Hold my beer because you can basically play as almost anyone we've put
Yeah.
in the game. Which I think the concept is
Oh, the concept's brilliant.
very interesting. It's going to be very interesting because I think it has the comedy factor, and it's the fact that it's not just like different skinned people. Like these different characters have different abilities. Their weapons are different. Like in the showcase, they showed that you could take the construction worker.
Yeah.
So his playing as him was very sort of guerrilla fighting. I've got a wrench. I'm gonna smack him with a wrench a bit and like try and body charge them into stuff. He fought like your stereotypical construction worker you would think, rather than him just being like any other character. Only he's wearing a high vis and a helmet.
Yeah.
And I definitely like this idea that choosing different characters actually matters. You're not just playing who you like to look as.
Yes. Oh no, I completely agree with you on that front. I mean, it's just the fact that they've gone into that much detail with all these different characters and are focusing on, like
Yeah.
you said, the way that they fight each other, but even some of the areas that you can get into, like as the construction worker, because of his look and appeal, he can get into like construction sites without looking out of place. So you can't just kind of run into stuff like that.
I can definitely agree with what Multibus
Morty.
has just said in the chat. With the problem with it, it's an interesting concept, but you lose a lot of character development,
Yeah.
and that is doubly the case because of the fact that I'm pretty certain. Don't quote me on this. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty certain they said that if a character dies, like that's it, they're dead. So if a character dies and you lose them, I think you actually lose the character. I might be wrong on that though.
Oh, so right, okay, yeah.
That's why you want to build up a wide range of characters, because if you lose, you can lose the ability to have characters. So you might be liking a character and start building some character development and then lose them.
Right.
But then again, playing devil's advocate, the inverse there is there's a decent amount of sort of character development, because in order to be able to even recruit someone, you actually have to sort of play like an origin story for them. So
Yeah.
they've pooled most of the character development into the plot line of you gaining them as a character. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think once you've got them as a character, you do lose a lot of the charm of watching your character grow throughout the story of the game. So I definitely agree with Morty there.
Yeah, I can definitely get on that point, and it really does depend on how Ubisoft and the development team have kind of implemented the stories of these characters. You know, because there are games, granted few and far between, that you can connect on such a fantastic level with characters and only really play or be near them for maybe a few hours. So it really does depend on exactly how they do it and integrate their stories together. They could nail it, which I'd be very surprised if they do. It's not an easy thing to do. Or, as Morty has kind of put here, you know, you do lose that character development completely and you just don't feel connected with your character at all. And that, I think for me, is
Going to be the killer.
yeah, it will kill
The
it will kill the
characters
game.
are more tools than characters.
Yeah, and I mean, Morty's example there of Ezio Auditore da Firenze from Assassin's Creed 2, one of the best video game characters ever.
Oh, yes.
Everybody who played Assassin's Creed 2 loved Ezio. And his story was so well done and intricate. And it's not like we haven't. It was a completely unique story. It's a story that we've all seen in media all the time. You know, somebody's family dies, they go get revenge, but they, you know, they develop from there. And
I mean, there's definitely a reason that he got 3 games.
yes, absolutely.
and no other assassin that we've played have.
Brotherhood was the best.
Brotherhood was the best.
Brotherhood
but I
was
feel
the
like
best.
Revelations is a severely underrated game. Revelations was good.
Yeah, I liked Revelations.
I loved
It was
Revelations.
good. It was really good.
Yeah, it just goes to show that they did such a good job of the whole character development with Ezio, like what he said about, you know, it being a great character, that he got 3 entire games based around him.
Yeah.
Whereas since then, we've keep jumping to different time periods, different time like locations with different assassins that, yeah, for the extent of that game, they might be good characters and we grow to love them. But since Ezio, since Ezio, we haven't had a character that's made us go, I need more games with such and such in.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you there. I really do. And you know, there have been some memorable characters across. Like Edward Kenway, I think, is one of my favourite Assassin's Creed characters of all time. But I think that was more because of the time period. The golden age of piracy is a really, really interesting historical moment for me. And then you follow that up with Assassin's Creed 3 and the American War of Independence. Again, for me, that's a really interesting historical period.
Yeah.
So I think I'm more in love with the scenes and the kind of story that goes on more than the characters. But because I love those games so much, I have a fantastic relationship, I guess we can call it, with Connor and with Edward. Whereas, you know, they're not characters that had sequels. I mean, technically one was a prequel of the other, but they're not the same characters. So that's always something to kind of look into. That actually brings us quite nicely on to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, another one of the games that was shown at the Ubisoft sort of gameplay reveal, I guess.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. That's had a little bit of a mixed response in some areas of the internet. Some people are just complaining that it looks a bit like oh, what was the one before it? It wasn't Origins, was it? It was
Odyssey.
Odyssey.
Yeah.
It looks like Odyssey with a Viking skin. I never played Odyssey. I dabbled in Origins, but I haven't actually played an Assassin's Creed properly for a while. So personally, I am very excited, and that game looks very enjoyable to me.
Yeah, it does.
Very enjoyable.
My biggest problem, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this as well, and I think it's because it's still in pre-alpha and it's not been released yet, but the character models themselves, they looked quite dated, as if they hadn't fully finished the character models.
I feel like that as well. I also felt some of the animations in some of the fight sequence just felt, I say feel, no, looked a little bit sort of clunky, but in an unfinished way, not in a badly designed way. I hope I'm right there. I hope it's not just that the animations in Valhalla aren't great, because there definitely were some situations where animations just felt too fast. Like they just sped up really quickly and just sort of very floaty, and like character models would snap 180 and then carry out an animation. Like there wasn't flow there, which Assassin's Creed has always been very good for its flow. The character models have always been very good at being able to, maneuver from one move to another, in a 180, but do it in a flow. So I can only hope and pray that that's just because it's unfinished. I did see a lot of people trying to be like, oh yeah, but there's only a couple of months, they can't do much left in a couple of months now. There's not one, they can, but also two, that build that they played is probably also a few months old.
Yeah.
Like whenever you get early builds of a game that you're playing, it's very rarely in a scenario like this. Obviously things like with the MCC flighting and stuff, that's actual beta testing. But like when they have these sort of little press builds to show things off, they're usually a fair few months old already. And half the time, most of the things that people will pick up on and complain about is actually already fixed in-house. That's been fixed like for 2 months. It's just they like to make sure that you play much older, stabler versions of the game rather than what is currently being actively worked on. Because, as a developer, I can tell you, you can change one thing, think everything is fine, and then all of a sudden, something that's been working for 6 months just breaks.
Yeah.
And that happening like 3 days before you're due to have a bunch of YouTubers play your game, that would be devastating. So they tend to get these stable builds of like, this game is in a very good position, there's very few bugs, we're going to get them to play this because we don't want them to break the fuck out of it while they're getting their opinion of the game.
Which some people will try and do anyway.
Yes.
Because that's standard. And yeah, I think people do need to realise that it's not just like last week somebody picked up a controller and started playing it. These are they're kind of very manipulated segments of games that go to show, what the game is going to look like. But the footage itself, as you said, will be a couple of months old at the very best, and manipulated and edited in such a way that, one, there aren't spoilers. Two, it shows off enough of the gameplay mechanics to get people excited. And I don't think I have a third point.
Yeah, you really built that up like there was
really
more.
did. And, it just showcases what the game is. Here's the third point. It's going to showcase what the game may look like and, what can be improved on and stuff like that. And it's a good way for them to get feedback. And I'm concerned. I think the better thing that we're seeing here is I'm going back to Watch Dogs here, but Watch Dogs 1, when they did that full gameplay piece, that was the best looking game I think I'd ever seen in my life because it looked amazing. Then they released it.
Yeah.
It was all lies.
That was the legendary.
It wasn't even
Ubisoft downgrade.
And
the legendary Ubisoft downgrade.
And hopefully, because obviously because it's pre-alpha, the Valhalla gameplay footage was not perfect, because you're right, the animations were a bit sluggish at times, or they would just snap and it wouldn't feel natural and it wouldn't flow. The character model faces and stuff just didn't look quite right. They just seemed a bit off,
There
as
were
if
a
they
couple
hadn't
of
finished
situations.
rendering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Whereas inversely, others looked fantastic.
yeah,
Others looked like the best faces I've seen in an Assassin's Creed game, and then literally the next conversation with someone is like, "Oh, that is an ugly
yeah,
face."
exactly. So I'm hoping that instead of that, what will happen is when it comes to release, actually, it will look absolutely stunning. Because I mean, the world of England looked incredible. It looks stunning, and I'm hoping
Please,
that kind of stays.
please don't give us the Unity bug. I don't want the terrifying eyeballs, teeth, and hair.
Oh God.
But overall, I think
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the gameplay reveal. I enjoyed kind of everything that was there. It's really interesting to see these kind of characters and go from there. I think it's going to be a one or the other sort of situation as well, unlike Odyssey, because maybe spoilers. I don't know. I've not played it, so I can't confirm. But whichever one you choose, whichever of the brother or sister, you meet up with the other sibling later on in the game, and it turns out actually they are the people at the top of the cult, and like they're leading the cult. So it kind of intertwines that character into it. I feel like this game's not going to do that.
No, it definitely, because they're not separately named characters either.
Yeah.
Like, I think from what I've gathered from the way they've put it is it really is just a choose your gender of this singular main character. Like, the main character is this character, and you are either male or female. It's not like a sibling thing. It's literally just a choice thing.
They also did come out and say that at any point during the game you can switch gender as well. So
Oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting.
yeah,
To be
I'm
able to
pretty
just
sure
switch a choice. That's pretty cool.
you'd have to definitely triple check that. I'm pretty sure it's PC Gamer that came out and said that Ubisoft have already stated that at any point during the game you can change the gender of the character.
That's pretty cool. I'm all for just choice and customization in games, and just being able to customize things.
They've also stated that the gender you're currently playing as, or choose to play as through the entirety of the game, will have zero effect on which romantic lines you can chase.
That's good.
So if you want to chase after all the dudes as a dude, that's perfectly fine.
I've always liked a game that has been open and free like that. I do feel like player choice is just something that shouldn't necessarily be shoehorned. Like,
Yeah.
Something like one of my all-time favorite games, I think it's definitely up there, is Dragon Age Origins. And I feel like they did a pretty decent job of doing that, particularly for the time that it released as well, with the romance options. And they had it so that characters had sexual preferences, but they were breakable. So,
Yeah.
like, you had characters who were designed to be straight, but all that meant was you had to work harder if you were the same sex to romance them. There was only a couple of characters that were unromanceable by certain genders, and it was also by certain races, and they were more story reasons. So, like, I know Alistair, if you played as a female warden, you could romance Alistair quite easily. And if you were a male warden, you could still romance Alistair. You just, it might have taken you a couple of extra conversations longer and things like that. And they definitely sort of wanted to keep it so that it was your choice. Their characters weren't just blank, mindless characters. They had personalities and preferences and backstory, but you could mold that if you wanted to. So it was definitely centered around being more free and open.
No, and that's good. I mean, it makes sense to have a character's actions determined by their past, if that makes sense. That's how they've developed from that story. If you get somebody who's like a devout Catholic, for example, or Christian or something like that, it's very unlikely that they're going to have a romance with somebody of similar gender to them, because that's how they've always grown up. And that's their views. doesn't necessarily
Just
mean that that person is
easily-
fighting
yeah,
that. It's always dependent on them as a tool to create a story. But you can have
Yeah.
somebody who isn't religious at all, who doesn't
It's,
mind. And
it's definitely
yeah,
good to have freedom while also trying to maintain
realism
character,
and
character backstory.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just completely break a character's backstory and make something just not really make much sense for the sake of the character freedom, but you still want to provide enough of the freedom to allow a character to do to do what they want, which is definitely something I'm all for.
Exactly. And I think one of the games that did that very well as well was the Mass Effect series. Whilst that
Made
was
by the same people though.
yeah, exactly. And whilst that was very much orgy station, because you could, I'm pretty sure you could fuck anybody.
Mass Effect was just like, what was?
Let's just fuck everybody. Like, come on, everyone, get in here. Let's go. But I mean, that's
the fuck Master Shepard.
that game's like in the future. Obviously, if anybody doesn't think Mass Effect's not in the future, then please call your doctor quickly and let them know the situation. But that's so far up into the future, into a point where there's so many different civilizations that kind of intertwine and interlink that that's going to happen. If that ever were to happen in our civilization, we would see that, and we would always see that, and that's just nature, really. So
I feel like giving player choice can only ever be a benefit. It'll never hinder anyone. So I find it silly when people complain about things like this, because of the fact that it's like, well, it's your choice.
Yeah.
If you personally do not want to romance same-sex partnerships in a game, then just don't.
Yeah.
Having the ability to is not forcing you to do it.
Yeah.
Not having the ability to is forcing someone to not be able to do it. So yeah, it's just one of those things that having options is only ever good.
No, of course it is. And, I'm going to move off this subject because it can be a touchy subject.
That's
points. Fair. I mean, Leechy, what did you think about the Valhalla kind of reveal and stuff? What were your thoughts and what was going through your mind at the time?
So I was a big fan of Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went stale with Assassin's Creed for a little bit, if I'm honest. And I know this is a bit of not a sore topic, but I know Rooster probably going to disagree with me here. But I think Black Flag was pretty garbage. I didn't like Black Flag.
It's why we can't be friends.
But you're best friends. That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all.
I'm just going to say I appreciate your right to have an opinion. I don't agree with your opinion, but that's your right. There were kind of mixed reviews for sure on Black Flag. I loved it.
My main thing for Black Flag was, on the whole, it was it was Assassin's Creed. It was what it was.
Yeah.
But for me, with it being the first game, I think, that had the sailing, it felt like far too much of a shoehorned feature.
It wasn't. It was
to just fill time.
It was the second game that had sailing. Assassin's Creed 3 was the first one.
Because Black
before 3?
No, Black Flag was 4, wasn't it?
Yeah. Assassin's Creed 4,
oh,
Black
yes,
Flag.
it was. Yeah, I'm genuinely mixing up their timelines. I thought Black Flag was before 3.
3 was okay, but I don't think I played it.
Here is agreeing with you, actually.
On this one, I play Assassin's Creed games and play as an assassin, not a pirate. That's fair enough. That's a perfectly acceptable opinion. You're wrong, because obviously you're next going to be playing as a Viking. Get fucked. But
Morty,
nah, I'm joking.
So we understand and agree with the fact that you have an opinion.
So yeah, for me, 3 I didn't play long enough to even get to the sailing sections. I don't think not so that they were a main part of the game. Black Flag, honestly, it just kind of felt shoehorned in as a way to kill some time, to make to
make the game
artificially extend the game's playtime.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough.
I just didn't find any sort of enjoyment in it, so I stopped playing. And then I took a long break from the series, and then Origins come out, and I massively I really love the new style of the games. I think they work really well as an RPG game. I think. The only thing that stopped me playing Origins in the end was I owned it on Xbox One and not a One S or not a One X or anything like that, just a bog standard first edition one. And in some of the later areas, they're so heavily detailed. Like I got to give credit to Ubisoft there; they did a fantastic job of building the worlds, but
It was too much for the
killed, yeah,
console.
it killed my performance, and I find myself very. I don't know if it's because I've been playing PC for a long time, but I find myself very sensitive to lower frame rates. Like
Yeah.
if it dips even just a couple of frames, I can normally pick up on it, and it's not so much seeing that drop; it's definitely feeling it. Like as you're
Yes.
running through the
Yes.
world, and you full sprint through like I don't know, tall grass, like you're fucking not Margaret Thatcher. What was her name? What was the other one?
No,
Theresa
Margaret
May.
Thatcher.
Theresa
Theresa
May,
May
same
runs
person.
through
Through
Same
the
person.
wheat fields.
Have you
Yeah.
ever seen them both in the same room at the same time? Didn't think so. Same person. Do
Do you know why they're the same person though? Because
both of them
Margaret
screwed us.
No, Margaret Thatcher actually fed off of the souls of children and then became
Theresa May.
Theresa May. They
Yeah,
are the
wow.
same person.
If
They
that's
just
not some
fed
Daily
off
Mail
of
shit,
the
I don't know what
souls
it
of
is.
children, and then they had to kind of like reimagine her as a person so that she could run again in Parliament. That's my theory, anyway.
So in terms of that, about Origins being clusterfuck for quality, on the console, I have to disagree. I think maybe once in my entire playthrough of the game, which again I didn't finish, but I was very close to the end. I should have stuck it out and just finished the game, to be honest. But
Yeah.
whatever. It worked well, other than the fact it run like shit in areas. Because that was the thing.
I
it was
have
only
heard
certain
PC
areas.
did have a lot of issues with
The
Origin on
PC
release.
version of the game.
I'm pretty sure they didn't really fix it properly either. Like it's
No.
had some fixes that's improved it for most, but I do think Origins is still on PC.
Yeah, from
problematic.
what I heard, PC suffered from the very same performance issues that the console had.
Yes.
So it wasn't even as if I could rectify my problem by moving over to PC. Must be nice 2 years later, still not.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think what they kind of failed at was they were trying to go so kind of grand with Origins, and they were. I think they were
really
reaching
wanted to
a
push
bit
the
too
boundaries.
much. Yeah, they definitely did, and that's never a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. It's really great that they pushed those boundaries and they tried new things, and some of those new things worked really really well, but their performance suffered because of that. But when you take the likes of Odyssey, for example, Odyssey was labeled as one of the best Assassin's Creed games that ever released in terms of like performance.
Yeah, so
stuff
again,
like
for
that.
me, Odyssey was actually, as much as I loved Origins and only stopped playing because of the performance, I didn't touch Odyssey.
I didn't either.
I feel like
I bought it for Xbox, but I
So-
never bothered to play it.
Yeah,
As far as I'm aware, the general consensus was like setting, gameplay, and stuff like that. Origins was the better game. People enjoyed Origins more, but Odyssey fixed a lot of shit and was the better running game.
Nikki's completely disagreeing with you on that point.
And Nikki will completely disagree with everyone, but Nikki is always wrong.
Depends what perspective.
Yeah, totally not angry at all, are you?
But yeah, I'm hoping that they take a lot of what they've learned from Origins and from Odyssey, and they improve on that in Valhalla. And for anybody who hasn't tried kind of the new Assassin's Creed games, they are very different, so they're not to everybody's cup of tea. You no longer feel like you're a god, and the level system is just it will either turn you into a god or completely destroy you by a matter of about 2 levels. The leveling system on that is really kind of out there and just not. I don't like the leveling system, because if a character is like 2-3 levels above you, he will just annihilate you, which is not really that much experience in terms of the game and everything like that. So
See,
So,
I found
yeah.
when playing Origins, at least, that whilst that does ring true, and you see the bigger dudes with like the skull or whatever saying, don't fight this guy, they were still perfectly beatable. You just couldn't tank them. You had to be you had to be on it with avoiding attacks and stuff like that, but you could take them out. So I think it provided a nice challenge. Odyssey, yeah, like I said, I completely skipped, but to get to the point that you asked me like 10 minutes ago, I'm actually super excited for Valhalla because
am
I
as
liked
well.
Origin so much, and like some of the new combat things and stuff like that. Like you saw a couple of moments in the gameplay they did show where you stun the enemy or whatever, they drop their weapon and you pick it up and smash them in the face with it. Like that looks like loads of fun to me.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to see where Valhalla goes because I also I can't remember if they said it in one of their interviews or if I read it in an article, but apparently there's going to be less variety of weapons,
Yeah,
but
they said it in the gameplay.
yeah, each weapon is
Less.
going to be more tuned and have its own combat
So
style.
what it sort of meant by that, by less variety of weapons, is you're not going to get a whole bunch of the same weapons. So they didn't go into too much detail, but what they sort of meant is rather than having 150 different battle axes that all look slightly different with slightly different stats, it's going to be more of here's a battle axe that you can turn into and use the way you want to, and you can upgrade the battle axe rather than having, Ogon the Great's battle axe and Dogon the Great's battle axe and Rogon the Great's battle axe and Pogon the Great's battle axe, and oh look, we've got loads of quality. This one's pink, this one's blue, this one's purple. Look, whoa, so much different. Like they said, they don't want to focus on that. They want to focus on weapons are interesting. When you find a new weapon, it's not just hey look, it's the same weapon with +2 damage. It's oh look, I got this weapon from this character. It's this kind of dagger. I don't have a weapon like that. So yeah, they want to focus a lot more on different
That's
kinds of weapons and them feeling more unique rather than a billion of each weapon type.
And that was a problem. It was like a saturation piece with Origins and with Odyssey. Was there were like 5 or 6 different types of weapons, but there were about 1 million within that category. So you could run around with like double blades and different variants of double blades, but there were always double blades. Do you know what I mean? And it's a case of, oh, I've got this level 10 double blade, but now I'm level 15. I've just found a level 15 double blade, so they're gone. And I think what they're trying with Valhalla this time is, you're going to be able to customize your own blades a lot more. You'll be able to find these certain weapons across the world, be able to customize them, and then an upgrade will only come by every now and again, but you can still like improve your weapon to be as good as like those
weapons
upgrades.
Will improve with you. So like you said, there's a lot less of this, hey look, here's the level 15 version of the weapon I currently have. Looks like I'll use the one with the higher numbers. It becomes less of a spreadsheet game of,
exactly.
This one says 4, that one says 3. Guess I'll use the 4 one.
Yeah, and that's the sense I got throughout all of Origins, and I think that's another reason why I stopped playing it, was because it took some of the RPG elements of the games and used it really, really well. But with its weapon structure, I just kind of pulled away from the game from that point, because it was a case of, well, how would Bayek know that this has got an extra 4 damage? Like, it just, I kind of
he looks at it and can see that this one is slightly sharper.
He's got the receipt from his old one. He's like, it says here 5 points of damage, but the advert for this says 7. I don't know.
I had a sale on, and now I've got the better one.
Yeah, it's another reason why I hate, and I really don't like this, but I absolutely despise games that show damage counters and like hit damage in terms of a number. I don't mind in like MMOs, but like Borderlands, for example, when you hit a character and then a number comes flying out of them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it.
Damage numbers.
I know. I called him a whore the last time he told me that.
I cannot stand them. I
Right,
really dislike them.
Now, yeah, last podcast episode for me, guys.
We did it. We ruined them at level 12. Get it down there. No, I'm sorry. I just can't stand them.
Yeah,
when,
it's something you can turn off, I believe. It's an
it
optional
is,
thing,
yeah.
which is great. But yeah, I
But-
can't believe you don't like damage numbers. They're the
No,
most
I can't.
glorious thing
I
in the
really can't
world.
stand them. I love them in MMO. So if I'm playing like an MMO, like ESO or WoW or anything like that, I need
Yeah.
them. I think they're
I suppose
perfect for that.
I
But-
can agree there is I primarily have my love of them from MMOs, so I'm saying I'm gonna like them, but for all I know, I might get, say, 3 hours into Valhalla and go, to be honest, I just want to turn these numbers off now.
Yeah.
It might not feel right in an RPG. But it's interesting to have it there, so I guess I'll take it as it comes and see how I react at the time.
I've occasionally turned it on sometimes, but in terms of RPGs where I'm trying to really connect with the character, I for some reason it pulls a disconnection for me. It's another reason why I'm not going to have them on for Cyberpunk, although it makes more sense within the Cyberpunk world to have like a damage counter come flying out because of the cybernetics. But again, it's just going to take away from me a little bit, and I don't know. I feel like when running numbers playing a video game, it then does turn into that kind of spreadsheet meta where I'm thinking, oh, this guy's got 1,700 health points and I'm doing about 40 points per hit. So I need to hit him X amount. I don't care about that. All I want to do is just stab the fucker in the face. Like
Morty has just shat over your entire statement. And to be honest, I think just stuck the knife in you and twisted because he's made such a valid point there.
Do you know what? I think games would be more enjoyable without health bars. I think they'll be more challenging.
I feel like it depends on the game. I think
this is all kind of very much like an opinion thing, because I know that they have a fantastic kind of, a lot of people love to have damage counters and they love having health bars and they love having all of that good stuff. And I'm not taking away from that. I'm just saying, from my perspective, I'm not a fan of them whatsoever, so I always turn them off. But I understand why they're there, and a lot of people, as you get that love from MMOs. I just don't like it, and it is very, very similar in terms of health bars. I'm not a fan of the kind of the health bar, but it serves a really important purpose, especially when it's your character's health bar. And I think your own character's health bar is different because you would know as a character that, I'm going to take Escape from Tarkov as the example here, that has a numbering system per limb. And yeah, you wouldn't know that you've got like 10 points of health left in your arm, but as that character would know that, fuck, my arm hurts.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can tell that, oh, look, my left arm's floppy and I can't use it.
I think it's broken.
It might be broken.
and kind of like that. But somebody that I would have shot, I won't know what their health is like unless, one, they're dead and they drop to the floor, so essentially it's 0, or 2, they're running slowly. And I think that's just kind of, yeah. And that's a fair point, Nikki, in terms of, like, it gives players a sense of the duration in battle. And there is that case of, how close am I to actually defeating this boss? And I completely get that, and I'm completely on board with that. 100%. And
equally though, so I wasn't a huge Final Fantasy fan. I mainly played 10, I think it was, the one with the underwater football. I don't know what it was called now. But yeah, 10 was the one I played the most, and I'm pretty sure that one you never knew what the boss's HP was at, and it does give you that kind of like, yeah, okay, you feel like you've been at it for ages, you've hit them for 10,000 damage, and how close are they to death? But equally, that was half the fun. It was like, I know I'm close to death, but where the fuck are they?
Yeah.
And it gives you that, it puts you on edge because you know that you've done loads of damage. You've been at it for like 15 minutes already, so they've got to be close to death. But then so am I. So, like, I don't know. I kind of like it sometimes. It is nice to know that, oh, yeah, if I hit him one more time, then...
you win, yeah.
Yeah. Like, imagine... imagine Dark Souls with no boss health bars.
I would love it.
Oh,
I'd love it.
I mean, there are people who play Dark Souls with no HUD.
I mean, It would
they're
stop you
called
being
gods.
greedy, I think.
Yeah.
Because
I-
you never know. Like, you don't know if you're one hit away. So it should, in theory, stop you taking that greedy one hit. But
Always
I'm,
gets you
I'm gonna
killed.
I'm gonna take a really kind of out there thought process here. To me, health bars are lazy, and the reason I say health bars are lazy for like enemies is you can very easily have visual, audio, and visual and audio cues to let you know how you're progressing through a fight. If I'm against a boss and I'm just seeing his health bar scroll down, but visually and there's no change to his attack pattern, or you get halfway to his health and then he suddenly starts to become more aggressive, but it's just constant. Whereas if the
The Last of
character
Us
I'm
2
fighting,
did that very well.
yeah, that they did that very, very well, in that kind of last fight scene. But there's visual and audio cues where if the character's getting tireder or starting to limp or starting to kind of lose momentum because there's this elongated fight, you know that you're having an impact on that character. And for me, just replacing that with a health bar is just lazy. It's an opinion. It's a very much an out there sort of an opinion, but you can absolutely develop in a visual and audio cue set, remove a health bar, and for me, that's more immersive than shooting somebody 20 times in the face, watching a health bar go down, and kind of stuff like that. But it's very much kind of maybe an out there opinion. That's why we started to do this, because we can have out there opinions and go from there. So
something another game actually that has it has health bars, but it also does give you a nice visual representation of when you're hurting. Is actually DayZ. DayZ had an overhaul to its like damage systems, and when you'll start to limp and stuff when you're at a lower amount of health.
Sorry, Morty, to go on to your point just there. No, not an enemy shout out, oh no, I appear to be close to death. But if an enemy starts, limping a lot, breathing heavily, holding a point where they're constantly bleeding because they can't medicate themselves or stop the bleeding or anything like that, start to get a little bit dizzy, start to kind of lose balance, attacks become slightly weaker, that kind of thing. They're all visual cues of that encounter where my character may be doing the same. A long fight, which we've all played games like Dark Souls. Boss fights can go on for 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and in that fight, that can feel like hours on end. And even in the real world, people who are fighting for more than 5 minutes are absolutely ruined. If you watch the likes of UFC, where they just absolutely plow on each other for 5-minute rounds, they're fucked after 3 minutes. And it's stuff like that I feel like it can bring a lot more realism. Having an audio cue where somebody goes, oh no, I seem to be dying. No, not like that. But if you hit him or hit the character that you're attacking, suddenly they scream out or you hear a crunch, you know that you've done significant damage to that opponent. I just feel like replacing all of that with a health bar just loses that immersion. For me, like I said, it's probably an out there opinion.
Yeah. Fair. I definitely feel like it's taken a right turn, and they really have done a good job with the setting and making the settings feel like something that I simply put, I really want to play it. I have been excited for an Assassin's Creed probably since Revelations, and I really want to play it.
That's a perfect example, closer to kind of like the Monster Hunter World sort of.
View. Spot on example there. To be fair, Morty, yeah.
So something kind of along those lines. But I think we can all say that we're excited for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The gameplay reveal for me, it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. There's definitely things they need to improve on, and I'm just hoping that it's because it's so early in pre-alpha development, and that could have been, as you said, Roost, 3 months ago. That was the build that they decided to use to showcase that. I still think the world was incredibly interesting. The characters are interesting. And I've always been interested in the kind of the Viking era, so I can't wait to get my hands on it, and I think that's the same for quite a few of us. But we're already an hour and 8, nearly 9 minutes in, and I know Ruth, that you wanted to.
Well, I think one thing we should probably quickly cover then, probably only briefly because there's not much about it, but Far Cry.
Ah, yes.
Far Cry 6.
Do you know what? I'm not excited.
Are you not?
No, and here's the reason that I'm not excited.
I'm not particularly.
Dictator runs the world. You got to fight them. That has been the same fucking game
I was gonna
since
say,
3.
I was gonna say, which one are you describing? 'Cause that's
Exactly.
all of them. That's fair enough. No, I think you've just completely changed my opinion.
Look, we
already.
need, but I don't have an opinion because we've only got a trailer. We need gameplay because the whole game can be completely different by having completely different mechanics and different gameplay. All in all, it can have a very similar story to what the last 4 have, or however many. But it seems like they are just picking up the old games and just plopping them down and go, look, we've added a 1 onto the number. Congratulations. Just fuck off. The game needs, from a story element, I feel like I've played that game 3 times now.
Yeah,
So
no, that's fair enough.
they need to really change it up.
I mean, to be fair, I haven't played a Far Cry since Far Cry 3, so...
Far Cry 4 was the same. Far Cry 5 was the same. Just different.
Yeah,
setting.
it's a shame because 3 did so much different, and 3 was really good.
3's the best Far Cry.
4 was literally 3 reskinned.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I never played 4, I never played 5, and I haven't played
5
was it New Dawn or something.
Yeah, so New Dawn was like the sequel to 5.
Yeah.
It was more or less closer to an add-on than a sequel, to be fair. 5 had an interesting premise, but it had really boring and forgettable characters. A really kind of nice and interesting world with a really interesting kind of origin to that story. Kind of like a state in America has just gone completely rogue, and it's difficult for military to get in there, let alone anybody else. But the characters, except for the main villain, were just kind of shit and forgettable. Yeah. And Far Cry does villains well. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, Voss, as Morty has suggested, Voss was one of the best kind of video game villains.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry, an alternative ending to Far Cry 5. That's correct. It was as if like a nuclear bomb had dropped on that state in the US, I think, or just the US in general. But it was just not. The Far Cry 5, I think, for a lot of people, it didn't capture the essence that 3 did. And I think that had been deteriorating when 4 came out, and everybody just went, this is 3, but just in a different location.
Yeah. Which is probably going to be the case again with 6, but we'll see when we get more information about it.
That's the thing. We can't really make that assumption now. We can make the assumption on the story because it's the same sort of story being rehashed. It depends on kind of what happens, but it's all down to gameplay and character development, as we've already mentioned kind of in this podcast. The character development for me is the most important bit, and if they fuck that up, no one's going to want to play it because you don't want to play as a character that you hate. Watch Dogs 1.
Perfectly agree.
A good example of that. People hated. What was his name?
Oh, example. There you go.
Yeah, I can't even remember his name.
Exhibit A.
And nobody liked him as a character, so they kind of they didn't enjoy the game. But yeah, that I think Ubisoft are good at doing stuff like that, Nikki. In terms of like they put those little Easter eggs
they like
in.
their little plays. Yeah,
And
he tells you to sit there and everything will be okay. You do sit there and everything is okay.
Yeah,
like
you actually have the best
that's
time.
something that Ubisoft themselves do kind of like to do. I think have these little. If only you'd done exactly what the main character had told you to do, things would have been fine.
Yeah, and it's fun, like those little things, but those little things don't make a game better. And that's that. Right, okay, so I think there's much else to talk about in terms of Ubisoft. I know that Roost, you wanted to talk about Skull and Bones, but I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, we can happily leave that there. I mean, it wasn't anything that was time pivotal. I think we've covered all the main topics. Obviously, with the Xbox showcase literally right round the corner, I'm excited for the next episode because I know
we're going to be covering that.
One thing I will quickly say is they very recently turned around and said that the showcase is basically an hour-long showcase of just lots and lots of gameplay. Like it's all games. They said there's going to be basically nothing to do with
gameplay.
Are we sure?
they've said that there's no device reveals or information or anything like that. They're not going to be talking about devices and things like that. It's
Oh.
just going to be, here are game studios showing you their games for an hour straight. So
Okay.
that's exciting if that is the case, because that is what we want out of this next
Yes,
showcase.
absolutely. I kind of wanted more information on the console, maybe its pricing and stuff like that, but
They might slip that in at the end or the beginning, but there was a tweet put out. I'm not sure if it was earlier today or yesterday or something, where they just said it's basically an hour straight of just games.
well, we can only wait for that. Look, I think we may do another podcast just in this kind of format shortly after that, and just have it focused on that gameplay reveal, because there's going to be a lot of
There's
information
definitely
there.
going to be a lot of good stuff there, I reckon, personally.
So I think this right now. I think this is a great place to call this episode. I want to thank everybody that has been in the chat, that has kind of joined in as well in the conversations. You guys have been fantastic. So have you two, as usual. Thank you so much for kind of being a part of this podcast. Episode 12. Leechy, we did this back in December. How does that make you feel? Every time.
Old.
I mean,
Makes me
old.
feel old.
But yeah,
it's getting closer and closer to a year of this now.
I know. How crazy
what
is
the
that?
fuck?
That is brilliant. Nikki, you'll be in the video, my friend. So what you can see now on stream, this is going to be the video, and it's all going to be posted up on there. But guys, you guys that have dropped in here and said hello to us and interacted with us, thank you guys so much. Anybody watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We will be back hopefully within the next week to give you, our thoughts and maybe a little bit of a breakdown on the Xbox
YouTube video.
gameplay.
Now, though, for the video, you should just bleep out every mention of Nikki, just to specifically give him
Just to
an
spite
shout
him.
out, and also put a blank out in all of his chat messages, just so that he's not in the video at all.
But apparently, it's the only way that he can communicate with his mum.
Quarantine's hit hard.
Oh, brilliant. Right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to end the stream now. Have a great rest of your Thursday. To you guys on YouTube, have a great rest of your day. And we will see you on the next one.
Toodles.